Amanda, do you agree that we have a quorum? Thank you. The meeting is called to order. You've been presented with a copy of the proposed minutes of the February 23rd meeting. Are there additions and corrections? It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The minutes are approved. Item 3 is the revenue and expenditure report. David, you want to take us through that?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the MAPS 3 revenue and expenditure report for the period ending February 28, 2017. On the revenue side for the month, $9,387,573. Fiscal year, $72,894,015, and total program revenue of $711,685,978. On the expenditure side for the month, $6,825,646. For a fiscal year of $47,467,963, and a total program expenditures $253,665,263. You also have the obligations report in your packet. I can tell you that there's a lot of, obviously, the sidewalks, trails, we have money being paid out for construction on that. Health and Wellness is finishing up the first wellness center, and then we've got the second one under contract. A convention center has land acquisition and design, and then the streetcar, now that it has begun construction, you'll start seeing more money monthly showing up for it. So I can answer any questions you might have.
Michael Adams, our CFO here. Any conversation?
No, but just point out, I guess the monthly revenues are still falling below projections, but overall we're still 4.1% over the project total. So, and we only have 10 more months of collection, so we should be okay. It should come out somewhat over the original projections on the overall revenue.
Any other questions? Shall we receive it?
I move we receive it.
It's been moved and seconded that we receive the revenue and expenditure report. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is received. That brings us to item 4. Big day for the Citizens Advisory Board, for this Park Subcommittee. I know, David, you're going to introduce this. I do want to welcome Councilwoman Meg Salyer. We're glad to have you with us today. It's a momentous day for us, and we're glad to have you here to be with us for that. David?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Item 4 is recommend resolution approving final plans and specifications, MAPS 3 Park, Upper Park, and authorizing the city clerk to advertise for bids, project M3-P006. As you said, it is a very exciting day. We've been working very hard to get to this point. We're very glad to have Mary Margaret Jones from Hargraves & Associates here today to give you a presentation on these final plans and show you what is in them. So I'd like to invite her up.
Welcome, Mary Margaret.
I'm very pleased to be here. It is an exciting day. And as I told the subcommittee yesterday, I think that this project is one that will continue to put Oklahoma City on the map. I'm asked about this project around the country. People are paying attention. It's rare for a city to make what will be a 70-acre park, first phase Upper Park, a 40-acre park, 36 if you take out Union Station, in the heart of a downtown, and that will connect to the asset of the river eventually. So it's very exciting, and it's something to remind ourselves of, that it's not just a capital investment. It's not just a physical change to the public realm. It is also a social and economic catalyst for change. What we have found in cities like yours around the country, like Nashville, like Chattanooga, like Louisville, and also cities like Houston, is that these kinds of public investments have resulted in at least 4 times the amount of public investment in private investment as a result. So, for instance, in Houston, Discovery Green, $120 million public investment and philanthropic, including cost of land, et cetera. $1 billion of redevelopment directly adjacent to the park has now happened, naming itself after the park. So developers waited until the park broke ground, and then they started breaking ground with new mixed-use development around it. And then it just creates a place that people want to live, work, and play. So you are investing in something much bigger than physical improvements. You're investing in the social and economic future of the downtown. So I think it's very exciting. So we think this is the words on, or the numbers on this slide, we think are a conservative estimate of the things there will be to do and the numbers of people we think will come each year to the park. So I'll go through some of the, sort of a thorough, but not too long, sort of summary of what all the park includes. So it's important to think about, and this is something I put together for the new operating, the foundation board, the Myriad Gardens Foundation Board, who will be operating the park. This is something that we put together to remind them of the context of what is happening, the projects that are happening around us, and the edge conditions we are creating, because we aren't just about creating the park, we're about connecting to these other projects, MAPS projects and other projects in the city, and we're about making those connections stronger. So you see, of course, the boulevard, you see the streetcar stop that will be across the street from us on the corner, you see the future streetcar route and stop that will be on Hudson, you see the convention center and the hotel, and the kind of various attractions we have around our edges should also have labeled the dog park, because that's something on the Hudson side, on the west side, that's definitely seen as a neighborhood destination. Often the dog parks are the great social hubs of parks. Then you've seen this rendering before that shows the context of the potential hotel design and the pretty much current convention center design, parking where the convention center will expand in the future, and current, more or less current renderings of the convention center. One of the comments we've made to them is that the Project 180 street trees will continue, and they agree, on both sides of the street. So you'll have very much a framed Robinson Avenue. And then, of course, this picture, which gives you the sense of continuity from the city to the river, the connection of the promenade over Skydance Bridge to the river, and the kind of hub of activities at the boulevard and Robinson with the art, the stage, the Great Lawn, the Oval, the Urban Gardens, the cafe, and then moving down Robinson to the fountain, the play area, the lake, the event pavilion, and then on into the more natural lower park that will connect to the river. So in a flat city, it's really wonderful to be able to create a hill, because you get a lot of bang for your buck. So this 20-foot high hill, which is a big hill, will give you these stunning views of across the park, across the big oval, the Great Lawn, and to the downtown skyline. And then on the boulevard, the cafe, Hans Butzer from Butzer Architecture and Urbanism will present a little bit more detail on the buildings in a bit, but this gives you a sense of the context of the cafe on the boulevard with adult games, if you will, the Urban Gardens, and then the Great Lawn. And the fact that it is a lit beacon at night on the Harvey Spine, so it's a gateway to the park. On the Harvey Spine, there is a street there still, may still be in the future, and there will be crosswalks there. And the fact for every one of the buildings, the outdoor space is as important as the indoor space. It's more. We actually are giving more shaded exterior space than we are interior on every one of the buildings. And all the buildings are designed in a cohesive vocabulary, very vernacular, very much related to Oklahoma, and Hans will talk about that a little bit more. And then I think this is Jim Tolbert's favorite rendering of the park, because this is the part of the park that its size enables. Because it's 40 acres, the upper park, 36 acres, we are able to create a woodland environment, a grassland environment, and open spaces and a lake. So you have a real landscape. So you have a place within a city where you can be in the city, but in a way be removed from the city. And this view also shows how the landscape is doing a job for us. This garden that you see to the left is a rain garden, so it's collecting rainwater. All the rainwater is collected in these gardens and then put in the lake, where it's further treated or filtered with plants and then it's used for irrigation on the site. So it's a very sustainable park, as well as environmentally, as well as economically and socially. And then on that hill, if you turn around and look the other way, you see Union Station, you see Skydance Bridge, and you look across the lake. The lake has this pretty cool bridge. We think this bridge will be a destination as much as anything else. It has a kind of industrial framing, but then a wood encasement within that, which will make it very friendly, a place to be. It has places to sit, and it will be lit at night, so we think it will be very much a destination, just like Skydance Bridge is a destination. And then, speaking of Skydance Bridge, this is the promenade that will continue from the corner of Robinson and the Boulevard all the way through the park, across Skydance Bridge, and to the river, or to Southwest 15th Street. And the interactive civet scale fountain on your left, to your right is the children's play area, and then these beautiful light fixtures designed by the artist Jamie Carpenter that will refract light in the day and cast light at night, making for a safe and beautiful environment. And the fountain itself, mimicking the movement of grasses in the wind across the prairie, very interactive and scaled at one end to very small people and at the other end to larger people, grown-ups. And the children's play area. It's a large children's play area. This is a couple of acres of play that is both explorational and environmental, and again geared to everybody from toddlers to seniors. We have senior fitness stations as well. And the boathouse, where one will be able to sit in the shade on a Friday afternoon or any summer evening, look across the water, have a drink, have a snack, and get in a boat. And looking from the boathouse across the water to Skydance Bridge and Union Station. And then Union Station itself, what an opportunity to create a real destination in the park. Our market study showed there's a great opportunity for an artisanal beer hall here. There's also an amazing market for weddings and other kinds of catered events that could happen in Union Station. As part of this project, while the whole use of Union Station is still being worked out, as part of this project, we will convert this area that you see here into a pedestrian environment with plaza and plants. And we will occupy right away a part of Union Station for the data center for the park. And then over time, hopefully soon, the whole issue of using Union Station in whole can be resolved. So one of the things, as you may remember, we had economic and market consultants on board with us from the very beginning. So while this park, because it's a large landscape, so many areas of just natural landscape, it will never be totally economically self-sustaining. Excuse me, but it will definitely be able to raise revenue. So it will definitely support its own economic viability. And these are the various venues that will be rentable. So we identified them, as you see on this plan. You can rent any of these for your birthday party or your corporate outing or your concert or your festival. And then this chart, which we gave to the operators, lists them, gives the size of each, gives the infrastructure that's available in each of them, electrical service, et cetera, and how many people could use them and in what ways. So this chart will help the operators market the use of the space. And we've gotten lots of input from Myriad Botanical Gardens, as you can imagine. And as we looked at events on the site, we got input from all kinds of people. SMG, who managed Chesapeake Arena, Fred Hall, various people who put on events and concerts to get input. So this is a small event, 100 to 1,500 people. So imagine this one as maybe a free event. There's no crowd control, for instance, but you can see how it might set up and how it might accommodate up to 1,500 people. You could have 5 or 6 of these a year. Then you go to the next scale of 1,500 to 10,000 people, and you see you could set up on the Great Lawn 2 stages so that they're able to go from one to the next sequentially, so that there are events happening throughout the day. You see how the red dashed line shows a potential fencing, so the oval lends itself quite beautifully to a simple fence that would enclose it. And then you see VIP area and all the support you need from tents, from vendors, from porta potties, etc. And then, of course, when Katy Perry comes to town and performs outside in the park, we close part of half of Robinson, which traffic studies are indicating won't be a problem. And that's where the trailers go, that's where her crew is, that's where their back of house is, if you will, in these big semi-trucks along Robinson. And then the support facilities are along Robinson, and then you can have a much larger crowd and VIP sitting on the lawn itself, on the oval itself. And then festivals. This is actually how the Arts Festival could potentially lay out here, but this is a way of the operators understanding how they might lay out any potential festival, music, food, whatever. And it creates a sort of loop through the park, and that's what you want. You want people to feel like they begin and they walk through and then they end where they started. So it's kind of an L shape, or an oval shape, really, if you go around the back of the oval. And then a lot of the park remains open to the public at the same time, so that's important. In this case, the boulevard would be closed between Hudson and Robinson, again, something that has seemed very feasible with Public Works, et cetera, and again, using half of Robinson for setup. But a series of destinations, the kids' stage down by the fountain, and then 2 stages on the oval. There's furniture throughout the park of varying kinds, so that you have custom, more urban seating, benches along the promenade. You have more romantic, sort of historic-looking seating in the woodlands. You have movable tables and chairs around the sculpture location. You have very customized, very playful seating, if you will. And then in the dog park, there's seating, and in the children's play area, there's seating, and then there's picnic tables, of course. And the Project 180 vocabulary on the streetscape will continue, of course. So a lot of this park is about the landscape and about the planting, and it is very rich, and there are many different kinds of plants, from the gardens to the woodlands to the grasslands. So it's really all of those. And we think about them not only in terms of color, but also in terms of scent and sound and touch, because we want the park to be a destination for people of all abilities. So starting with the parterre garden, it has gardens that are about all 4 of those. And in each of those, the structure of the gardens is formed with grasses. So, and the native grasses make beautiful sounds in the winter, or when it's windy, like today. And then each of those garden areas is organized by color. So the grasses run through all of them, but then what is blooming is organized by color. So starting, let me see, where do we start? Starting on the left, starting on the west, and making our way around, it starts with the red garden. And you can see then scent and touch within the red plants that provide scent and touch within the red garden. Then we move to the white garden, where touch predominates because they're fluffy. They tend to be fluffy. And then purple, which gives us a lot of scent. A lot of purple flowering things have good smells. And then pink. And then blue, which is harder. For those of you who garden, you know the blue palette is more limited, but it's still pretty great. And then orange, which will be very splashy. And then yellow. And orange and yellow are at the corner, really. So imagine the sculptural corner where the art will be, and these very splashy, colorful gardens. And then looping back around on Robinson and ending with a green garden. And then the gardens in the woodlands, we call them lens gardens, because they're shaped like contact lenses. Some of them are concave and some of them are convex. The convex ones are often places of play because they form a hill. The concave ones are collecting rainwater, as I mentioned earlier. And so it's a pathway of discovery, and as you encounter each of these, they might be shaped in these various ways that you see here. So they're innies, they're outies, they're playful and different, each one. And then they, in turn, are planted in ways to provide variety of color, scent, touch, smell. Sorry, already said smell. Here, sound. There you go. And some of them are dry. When they're a hill, they're a dry landscape. And when they're a depression, they're a rain garden. And then some of them are actually forming rooms. And these are the 2 rooms where we think a lot of weddings will happen. There's one at the north end near the cafe, and there's one at the south end near Union Station. So these are enclosures within which there will be trellises under which weddings will take place. And then in the children's garden, there's one specifically oriented to kids in terms of plants that they can touch and smell. And then in the interior of that circle, those circles that you see in those funny shapes are logs and twigs that the kids can sit on, or twig-shaped benches the kids can sit on. And then the round things will be planter pots that they will plant themselves and learn about growing plants and then cooking and eating. And then over the bridge going over the lake, there will be planting along it, and then planting around Union Station, so that it's a place where you can imagine having Sunday brunch or getting married, having a reception there, etc. It'll be quite beautiful with this range of plants that, again, speak to all the senses. Then the woodland itself, the understory of the woodland was our biggest challenge, because you want it to be simple, you want it to be easy to maintain, you want it to feel fairly continuous. When we first plant the trees, the almost 900 trees, or about 900 trees, there won't be as much shade as there will be in 10 years. So we had to pick plants that would work now and later, and of course the operators will have to track that over time as well. But you can see it's a lush understory. And then finally the grass garden that will be around the event pavilion on Robinson. It goes up the hill, so it will catch the winds and make lots of sound. And the different plants relate to the different slopes, so it will be like painting the landscape with these grasses. So I'm going to ask Hans to come up and take you briefly through each of the buildings.
Thank you all. Very excited to be here this morning to share some of the architecture that will be featured within the park itself. I'd like to walk you through, in all total, there are 5 buildings within the northern portion of the park. Here we start with the cafe. The cafe building really has the most prominent location and arguably the most important location. You know, it's centered on the north-south Harvey Promenade and starts to capture pedestrians moving southwards from the Central Business District, from Myriad Gardens, and kind of ushering them, filtering them into the park. The cafe will be run by a local operator that will be focused on certain interior eating opportunities. There will be on the interior opportunity for picking up sandwiches and other things to eat, as well as drinks. As Mary Margaret mentioned, there is a lot of outdoor seating, covered shade, that will allow people to enjoy the beautiful views of the gardens that Mary Margaret just walked through. The image up here starts to capture really the most important architectural feature of all of the buildings, and that's the lantern. The lantern was inspired by a narrative taken from the Land Run, 1889, and it described this beautiful dark night sky and these campfires that started to dot the Oklahoma landscape. And it really started to create a very vivid image in our minds of how these park buildings within this beautiful new Oklahoma City park landscape could start to anchor people within this very quiet, idyllic setting. And so the lantern that you see here is really the key element that starts to draw people from the downtown into the park. You see that its verticality that starts to frame views to the sky. It creates these filtered views of red light, reminiscent of the embers of the fire in that original Sooner Land Run landscape. And it starts to then also anchor the enclosed cafe portion, where people can, again, sit and look out, or the extended roof structure, where people can capture a more breezy experience and look back to the city or into the park. The structural, material, and tectonic sensibilities of the 5 park buildings are all inspired by Oklahoma architecture. You have steel structures with locally culled brick. You have cedar, as well as glass and standing metal seam materials. And these are all shaped in certain forms that take advantage of views and program, as well as responding to the winds of our beautiful Oklahoma landscape. So as I walk through the different buildings, you start to see there's very unique geometries. And again, these are all inspired by and shaped by these views and the winds. This is a view of the cafe that kind of gives you the essence of what it's like to see it from the boulevard looking southwestwards. You can again see the indoor and the outdoor covered seating areas with the lantern up in the upper right of the image. On the eastern edge of the outdoor seating area will become a water fountain that has the feeling of a kind of a chimney or a vertical anchoring element. It really kind of helps anchor people and gathers people around in that outdoor seating area. Over the last few months, we've gotten some fantastic, very focused feedback from the Material Botanical Gardens people. And with their input, we've been able to continue refining the programming of the interior and exterior spaces of the 5 buildings. These are just images, and you'll see these for each of the 5, all the further refinements that we've made to ensure that these buildings function in a way that the local operator and the conservator of the garden, the park itself, they feel very confident of how these buildings are organized. So you start to see a lot of the evolution of just the more technical and programmatic aspects of each of the different buildings that have gone into how they've developed. We want these buildings not only to be beautiful and inspired, we want them, of course, to work well. Here you see some sketches that capture the essence of the water fountain that's under that cafe shade area. We'll have some nice splashing that kind of brings focus for children that are at the outdoor cafe area. You have this cutout in that brick wall that captures views from the boulevard that creates a lot of interest. At night, of course, that will be lit. So it truly should be quite beautiful, a beautiful focal element. This starts to highlight the location and the power of the stage. The stage is designed to frame views out onto the big lawn, as well as views back into the downtown city. It's basically open on both sides. The stage was developed in a partnership with feedback from the OKC Ballet, with the symphony, as well as feedback from regional music promoters, as well as, of course, experts in audiovisual type venues. These images here give you a sense, again, of that big kind of shelter set up on a steel frame, again, kind of giving you that feeling of shelter in this kind of high sun, high wind environment. You see here how we can frame those views into the city and into the park. And you see basically through the stage building. So it really frames views. So it's not only a focal point, but it's also a way of framing, of another sort of lens, if you will. A lot of the functional components that go into a stage building to ensure that it's very versatile for different types of events that have very small gatherings, 100 to 1,500 people, and then scaling it up. It's a very flexible building, and again, all shaped by very technical as well as climate and architectural and historic forces. Down there on the western edge of the park, you see the boathouse. It really becomes the kind of this focal element on the edge of the southern half of the lake. Really excited about it too, kind of creating these framed views, capturing shaded spaces, filtering the wind so that the people who gather under the shaded areas are in the most calm spots, the shaded spots. We have very flexible interior programming that allows for rental of little boats that you could operate on the lake for small children, as well as food service for people who are just content gathering under the shade and looking out onto these expansive views and the lake. At the play area, which Mary Margaret mentioned earlier, is a very exciting location, really at the heart of the park itself, in between the great lawn, the hill, and the lake. You have, again, a kind of a double-sided play pavilion. It's set up in such a way that on the western edge, you have these covered, secure spaces that open and engage the enclosed and secure play areas. And then on the eastern portion, you have the covered open bay that engages the Robinson Gardens. So it's a very flexible building that has many faces, and again, kind of creates a fulcrum moment within this niche of the park. And you can see over the last several months how we've adapted the architecture to respond to a lot of the incoming needs and projected uses framed by the Myriad Botanical Gardens. A lot of technical errors. And then the last building on the southern edge, just east of the beautiful Union Station, is the Event Pavilion. It's a very flexible outdoor building that is designed to accommodate formal events such as weddings. You can imagine a beautiful wedding in the midst of the gardens next to the noble Union Station. On the other hand, you could also set it up as a roller rink. In fact, we even have planned disco lighting, so you can just imagine all the fun that we can have over probably at least 3 seasons of the year under the great shade of this event pavilion. Over on the left, you see the enclosed areas where they'll have some sales of locker areas, restrooms, and so forth. So again, a very flexible building that engages not only the covered area to the west, but also the great east lawn or the grasses to the east and south of this building. So again, a very flexible building that we think can kind of have a chameleon presence, adapt to a wide range of uses in a very beautiful way. And then, of course, the jewel of the park, Union Station itself, we've already accounted for making some use here for kind of the main security and data hub for the park. So we have kind of anchored all those main technical functions here in that northeast wing of the building so that we can kind of have this kind of master central space for all the kind of more fun technical things that have to go on in the park. But anyways, very exciting forms of architecture that create and adapt to a wide range of uses. But again, using a material palette that is both familiar and inspired by the Oklahoma history.
Thanks, Hans.
Thank you.
So here we are. Our drawing sheet set, which we submitted recently, is 578 sheets of drawings. You're free to go check those out if you'd like at the MAPS office. Lowe has the unenviable task now of reviewing those. And our technical specifications, which are 8.5 by 11 documents, instructions to the contractors, are 1,300 pages long. So a lot of work has gone into this, and we're very pleased to be at this point. Now, as you know, we do have some ad alternates. So we do have a base bid estimate of 48 and change million, and then we do have ad alternates that total close to 60 million. Now, I believe the chart in your books is a little more detailed than this. I think it has an additional line, but the same numbers. So these ad alternates are not in order of priority. They're not even in order of scale. They're just in order that they happened. So you can see they range from very small to very large, or to larger. And this is a very standard practice. When you put a project like this out to bid, an urban park like this out to bid, you want these identified elements that could, if necessary, be easily added later, or relatively easily added later, so that we can make sure we meet our budget when we award the bid. I know that these are all very critical elements to Myriad Gardens, to the operator of the park, because not only are these the kinds of features that will make the park a desirable destination, these are the kinds of features that will make it raise more revenue. So these are revenue-generating features in most cases. So we very much hope that the bids come in favorably, and as you see, we'll be back to review those. The budget challenges that have impacted us, half of them, or I don't know about half, but the top, in terms of numbers, but the top half on this slide have been things outside of our control in terms of utility relocation costs that aren't really for the park, but they're necessary to do in order to make a park. And then the operations and revenue enhancements that have really come to us more recently working with the operator. So all important, all good, but created some budget challenges for us. So that's the list of the alternatives. I'll go through them very briefly. Here they are in the plan. The first one is one part of the children's playground, so the majority of the children's playground is in the base bid, but this area is the Hills and Valleys and Nets area, which is always fun. This is the climbing wall. That would be an alternate and added potentially later if necessary. The Picnic Grove trellises, these are along Robinson. This is where the food trucks would line up. So it would be good to have shade here and the ability to suspend lights at night. So hopefully we can do it, but this is where those are. And then the two trellis, the garden trellis structures. So this is the one near Union Station. This is where we think a lot of weddings will want to be because of the proximity to the bathrooms of Union Station, the dressing rooms, et cetera, and the catering abilities there. And then the other one is up, the other one is up by the cafe. So these two trellis structures, and you can see they're fairly minor pieces. But again, it's important for us to have as alternates an array of price points. And then the fountain. And I think we all agree on the subcommittee that the fountain is a really important part of the park, interactive, civic scaled, et cetera, but it could be added later if necessary. And the view here shows you that. And it's quite a large area and includes seating around it, et cetera. And then the landscape around Union Station is identified as a bid alternate. And this is very touchy because there's one more I skipped. The event pavilion. So the shade structure at the event pavilion is also an alternate. So here's our next steps. We're here today asking for your approval to go to bid. With that, we'll go to City Council on Tuesday. It'll go out to bid the next day. Bids will be received May 2nd. Then we'll go back to the subcommittee to evaluate those bids on May 24th, and then back to you on May 25th. And City Council on June 6th, and issue a work order on June 7th. That's the idea. That's the plan. And then construction complete second quarter of 2019. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Mary Margaret, why don't you stay there for a moment, but I want to call on Kim for any comment from the subcommittee. You want to start the discussion of this, Kim?
Well, the first word I want to say is, phew. It's been a long 5 years, but it's been a great 5 years. This is probably going to be one of the highlights of my lifetime, getting to work on this. And I will tell you that it's a project that's been so thoroughly vetted and beautifully designed that I'm proud and humbled that this will follow me for the rest of my life, as it will you and your children and your great-grandchildren. It didn't take us long to realize that this park was underfunded. We've talked about that a lot. And not from the point of we didn't put enough in our efforts in designing it, but I think if our city leaders who put this MAPS project together had a bird's eye view of what was underneath that park, they would have upped our number a little bit. Many of the things that Mary Margaret talked about with land acquisition costs being fair to those people that resided there and moving them and relocating them. And then also making those site preparations and utility remunerations, not just for the immediate park needs, but for the needs of the future of Oklahoma City. Every single utility that runs through downtown and to Tinker Air Force Base lies underneath that park. So as we wanted the park to be able to ebb and flow above ground, we made sure that those things happened underground as well, which responsibility for those came at a cost. Which is why you do see a lot of these things listed out as bid alternates, because there may be some things that we move and shift to impact. It may be that we come back to this board and onto City Council to ask for additional funding to do that. One of the things that we were charged with this park, not only to design something for all of Oklahoma, all of Oklahoma City, that would grow for the next 50, 100, and 150 years, but also to design something that responsibly can be operated and can be self-sufficient. And we believe that all these parameters lay the groundwork for that. So there's a lot of work that's been into this. There's a lot of work that's going to come ahead with getting these plans evaluated and getting things bid. Your subcommittee yesterday unanimously voted to move this forward to you, and I sincerely hope that you agree to do that. And my last little bit of sentiment is I must really be tied to this project because the Upper Park is set to go out to bid on my daughter's birthday. The work order is issued to go out on my husband's birthday. And if it's all completed, it will happen on my 60th birthday. A milestone.
Planning is everything. Are there other questions for Mary Margaret or Kim? Cecilia?
I don't know if it's a question as much as it's a comment, and it's a little late in the process to bring this up, and I apologize for bringing this up. I just was thinking about the description of the cafe and the tribute to Oklahoma history, and I just want to make sure that all Oklahoma history is represented. And so since this is a central focal piece, I couldn't help that I didn't see anything related to Native American history represented in it. And so I just want to put that out there for the pieces that we may be able to add in later, that we pay attention to that part of the culture of Oklahoma as well.
Right. It's a really good point, and I don't know if Hans wants to add anything, but we do have an art budget. So there will be art elements added, and that is something that will go through the Arts Council, and there will be a selection committee will be part of that, and it will be an open bid. And so there's a lot of opportunity now to do an overlay of cultural, historical art elements.
And then I also think that one of the things I failed to mention was we were really excited when we finally did get our Myriad Foundation on as our operator, because as our subcommittee was going along, we knew that it would be errant of us to design this park without having an operator on board. And I think our operator is very excited about bringing in the type of programming and elements that will add that uniquely Oklahoma flourish to it, whether it be stable pieces of art that come in our art budget or maybe even traveling pieces of art that come in through that. So we've talked about that a lot.
Comments or questions? Mike?
I guess looking at the schedule, we're going to be faced in May with potentially a request for some additional money toward the park committee. We've talked in the past, I think, about not wanting to do that stuff until we had more information, and at the time that was thought to be bids maybe on the convention center as well. That's not going to happen between now and May. So I think we need to think as a committee what maybe other information we might want. We're going to be faced with this decision in May as to what information we might want before then, as to try to make that. And I'm thinking about, and I'll be glad to send David kind of a list of my questions, but I'm thinking about like maybe an update from the finance department of what they think collections are going to be, interest is going to be, how much contingency are left, maybe a little history on what monies we've had in the past that we've reallocated out and what the consequences and some of that stuff was and the thinking behind those. Maybe some reports from some of the other committees if they think they're going to have convention center, if they think they're going to be able to do theirs within budget or if they're anticipating any problems there. The other asks that are kind of pending out there from some of the other subcommittees and from the garage and some of those types of things. Now, I'll throw my thoughts and questions out there, but I don't know whether, David, you want to share those with the rest of the committee to see if they might want to add something or if anybody else may want to throw some questions toward David. But I'm thinking, rather than just coming to a meeting and start asking those questions at that time and maybe have to answer them off the cuff or something, it'd be better maybe to lay out some of those things that we might want to consider as we look at reallocating some of this money or recommending allocations of some of the excess money. And I think it'd be wise to maybe do that in a thoughtful process. Time to kind of look into it and maybe put some documents together for us and reports for us.
I think that's a completely reasonable expectation, and we can do a presentation, and I'll get you all that information when it comes time for that.
Right.
Michael, the park is also getting assistance in two other directions that I failed to mention that we discussed yesterday. First of all, the mayor is meeting with people that are interested in possibly making some donations to the park, maybe to cover one or more of these aspects that we've listed as alternates so that those things are funded outside of the MAPS budget. And then also the Foundation Board of Directors, which I've been asked to serve on, also realizes that they have some philanthropic work that will need to be done, not necessarily toward this, but in moving forward.
And I think that's a valid point. I think, and a question I guess I would have on something like that, if we approve giving money here for these ad alternates and we move $8 or $10 million or something out of the excess funds, and then later we are able to get some donations, does that come back to us to be able to allocate to other projects, or does it, stay with the park? I mean, those are some of the questions too, as to what's that process? How does that work? I mean, I'm certainly encouraged by, and it would encourage seeking those types of help on the project, but I'm not sure how the timing works and how it affects our budgets and some of that stuff too. So I think that'd be another question.
I think those are good points. Very good point. Dee?
The plans are beautiful. It certainly rivals even Central Park. It's just gorgeous. My question is, how much is it going to cost the city and the taxpayers to keep this up every year? What is the budget for maintenance of this wonderful facility?
I wish I had that number off the top of my head. We have done those figures. We first started with comparables, and then Myriad Gardens and the foundation have begun putting together very precise numbers. So it is down to how many people to empty the trash cans and how many people to weed. So there's a very, very precise budget now, and I just don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it's well in excess of $1 million a year.
And just to reiterate, some of these items that we're showing on here are to help defray those costs.
Exactly.
Because of the ability for the Conservancy to rent spaces and get income that way.
And some of these improvements and enhancements will actually lower maintenance needs. We were doing some things to save money, and they're like, no, in the long run, that costs more. So let's do a little more capital investment now to make operations and maintenance a little more efficient. So those are some of the enhancements as well.
Bob?
Perhaps a related question. In terms of revenue-generating events and activities, does all that money flow then to the Myriad Foundation? Does any of that make its way back to the city directly, or how will that, that may be a legal question as much as...
We have definitely given them all the, they've been part of the studies, so they have been in the loop from day one. So they have in their hands the tools they need to then market themselves and do the various things they want to do. And they have a lot of experience already.
So
Is that to answer your question? So.
Well, it was a general concept that the Myriad Gardens Foundation then would be, as the operator of the park, all the revenue flows to it.
They have an agreement now with the city, and I don't know the exact ins and outs of that agreement, but they have an agreement on how much they're expected to raise, what they're expected to do, what the city will participate in, and what the city will do. So there is a set of agreements.
They are the financial operator. So money recedes to the foundation to cover all of those expenses.
And if there's a shortfall in revenues in a given year, that's going to fall on the foundation rather than the taxpayers.
The intimacies at this point, I do not know that. But I would imagine it would be something that would ensure that the park is not dilapidated, let go. I mean, you have a tremendous board, foundation board, with some powerful people that I know you can count on to make sure that that's
And I think that's the case. I think there is a budget for what Myriad is, or what the foundation is expected to raise, either philanthropically or through revenue. And then I think there is an agreed to amount that the city will contribute. And if either of them can't meet their obligation, they have to fix that.
Just the same way as we do with the senior health and wellness centers with our operators, or the state park as an operator, or any other park that might have an entity that has an operator within it. That
There's an anticipated subsidy the city will have to make for the
There
operation.
is.
Correct. Just as it does for the other parks that are in existence in the city. However, the goal is to transition that as quickly as possible, with the foundation being the primary and eventually the exclusive funder of that, which again is why a lot of those revenue-producing alternates that you see are so important to get that revenue stream going. And a lot of the things that were designed in there came from the many workshops that Hargraves and their consultants have had with all of the auspices in the area, including the convention center, of late, to even know that, the fountain area can be rented. And that's a coveted area for having events that might be spill out there, or the event pavilion. So even though they may not have those kind of dollar-popping figures when you look at them from a drawing, ultimately they serve a great purpose.
Other questions? Kim, do you want to take a moment to talk about the mayor's plan for naming the park?
Certainly, I would love to do that. Earlier this month, our mayor announced a contest to name your park. One of the things that Mayor Mick Cornett has been very passionate about is that this park should have a name that's reflective of what the park represents to all of Oklahomans. Roy Williams eloquently once said that the convention center is the living room of Oklahoma City. And I now believe that this park is our grand backyard. It's a place where you will be able to come and bring your whole family for great picnics, for entertainment, for a day with the dog, a place to grab some friends and have an adult beverage, to celebrate birthdays for generations to come. And so the mayor wanted to ask all of Oklahoma City, and even people outside of Oklahoma City, what would you think this park should be named? And the only rule that he stipulated was it could not be named for a person or for a company. And so a contest has been started. If you want to log on to the city's website, okc.gov/nameyourpark, you can also contribute what your ideas are for naming that park. The contest will run through April 7th, and a committee has been put together to vet all of the ideas that have come in. As of today, we have over 3,000 names that have been suggested. So I think in the spirit of vetting, we'll be going through a lot of things, but we're very anxious to take that and boil it down to a group of maybe 5 or 6 names that the public will then get to vote on.
Kim, you're going to be serving on that committee, are you not? And,
I'm going to be a little busy, I think.
And someone else from the subcommittee is going to be on that as well?
Kerry Watkins will also serve from that, Jim Tolbert from the foundation board, and then there are some media people that are being gathered, some people from advertising and other venues in the community, so we'll have a well-rounded, I think, group of panel to look at it.
Kim, naming is always like the funnest, most public part of something like this, and I've actually had a lot of traffic from my friends and Facebook. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the most popular vote among my friends so far is Parky McParkface. So if you can take that to the committee, just want to make sure I represented my constituency.
You know, I believe that we probably have well over a dozen of that same naming, right? Yeah, it's I guess it's one of those things that is following in trends. So it's cute and catchy, and if that certainly represents a lot of people's feelings, we'll see what comes out.
All right. Are there further questions, comments for our consultants or for Kim? Kim, would you like to make a motion?
I would love to make a motion that we approve this resolution.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the final plans as presented for the downtown park. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Congratulations to all involved. It's been a wonderful and engaging process, and our congratulations go to all of you for the hard work that you've done, and it's another great step and another great day for MAPS 3. Thank you. All right, that brings us then to item number 4, is I guess number 5, is it, David?
Thank you. Item 5 is recommend resolution approving amendment number 2 to the contract for architectural services with GSB Incorporated, MAPS 3, Senior Health and Wellness Center number 1, increase of $7,729.32, project M3-H002. As I said, this is an amendment for architectural services. If you recall, this body approved the additional funding for some things at Wellness Center 1, and council has approved it, and the biggest thing in this is the finishes in the gymnasium, changes we're going to make there. So this compensates GSB for their work there and with those window shades. So this comes with the recommendation of the Senior Health and Wellness Committee. They didn't have a quorum, but those there recommended that we send it on to this board.
Questions for David? Discussion? Shall we approve it? Been moved and seconded. We approve the resolution. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Item 6, David.
Item 6 is recommend resolution approving change order number 12, MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center number 1, a decrease of $23,644, project M3-H002. There are several items on this change order. Item number 1, we've actually already authorized in order to get the facility open, but there's a requirement from the flooring manufacturer of a certain humidity level within or moisture level within the concrete, and we were not able to reach that after it set even a considerable amount of time. So we authorized the contractor to basically put a coating on that so that the adhesive will stick for that gymnasium floor. Then there were some art easels that the operator wanted. It's a countertop display case. Kiln room shelves were just bare wood. They were very nice, but once they got their art teacher in there, she was afraid that it would be very hard on the shelves and they would get torn up, so we put a finish on those. Then there's a credit from the dishwasher of $905 after we went through all the needs of the operator versus the specifications from the architect. The biggest item on this and why it ends up being a credit is the liquidated damages. So if you recall, in the contracts there's a requirement that they finish after a certain amount of time, and if they do not, there is a charge for liquidated damages of $1,000 a day. So they were 54 days behind. We're collecting that liquidated damages amount. This comes also with their recommendation.
All right. Discussion, questions?
I just had one question. I know that last month we heard a request from our operator at this facility to enhance the walls in the gymnasium. Could this money cover that type of project, or have you had time to even cost out what that might be?
Yeah, we've got an estimate somewhere around $100,000 on that. I think it's going to be a little less, but it's all in the mix and all the accounting that we've already done. We knew about a month ago that this was going to be agreed upon, and it's already in the spreadsheet that we have going on for all the things that we're providing out there. So, yes, but some of it's already spoken for.
Want to make a motion, we approve this? I know you like decreases in budgets, Cecilia.
I was actually going to move for approval before we even talked about it.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is adopted. David?
Item 7 is recommend resolution approving maintenance bond numbers 1 and 2, MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center number 2, approving partial acceptance and placing maintenance bond 1 into effect, project M3-H003. Remember that the second wellness center has tennis courts that we had to relocate. Those are complete, and they're actually being used by the Capitol Hill students right now. So we want to go ahead and final those and get the contractor out of that part of the project. So we have created 2 maintenance bonds. This new maintenance bond will cover the tennis courts, and then the maintenance bond number 2 will continue and will go into effect once the Health and Wellness Center number 2 is completed. So this helps get his clock started on warranty and allows the school to start using the tennis courts. And this also comes with their approval.
Questions? Been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. David, item 8.
Item 8 is recommend resolution approving change order number 4, MAPS 3, Senior Health and Wellness Center number 2, increase of $21,328, project M3-H003. When we bid the project Wellness Center 2, there was an alternate for an awning or a covering that was on the front of the building. We did not accept that so that we could stay within budget. But we're hoping, like in some cases, that there's still contingency money at the end of the project that we could add back that awning. The awning needs footings, and these footings right now are $21,000 to put them in. If we wait till the end of the project when we know that we have funds and add that back on there, they'll have to take out sidewalk that they've already built and things, and we estimate that the cost in the future would be about $50,000. So we'd like to go ahead and put these piers in anticipation of doing the covering later. So again, they did not have a quorum, but they recommended we send this on.
Shall we approve it? Is there a second?
Kim.
Been moved and seconded that we approve it. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. That brings us to item 9. Is there any new business by staff or members of the board? If not, let's move to item 10 then, the subcommittee reports. Is there any subcommittee that has an item of business for us today? Okay, informational items. David, why don't you do items 11 and 12 together, the informational items in your report? Is that okay?
All right, well, item A is some relocation benefits that were paid, just reporting that to you. Then temporary easement and a permanent easement have been acquired. And then we have the Lower Park property acquisition status map, and you can see that things are going very well down there. The dark blue is property that we have. The light blue is property that's in litigation. So we're moving along with that. And then as far as my report, work continues out at the Whitewater facility for that pedestrian bridge. If you go out there, and I encourage you to go out there, weather's nice, you'll see that they're building that bridge whenever people aren't using the facility. The water was replaced during the winter, and I think you'll note that the water is much clearer than it was last season.
In it last week, in the water, the raft flipped over.
Did it seem clearer to you?
I wasn't concentrating on how clear the water was.
Okay.
As we discussed, Senior Wellness Center number one is complete, opening on April 1st for a full opening, but we're still doing punch list items, and we've got some items still underway out there. And as I mentioned, Wellness Center 2 is under construction. Negotiations for the operator of Wellness 3 is underway, Wellness Center 3. As far as trails and sidewalks, the I-44 Will Rogers Trail continues and making great progress there. We have Phase 3 trails in design, and we have Phase 3 sidewalks under construction, and Phase 4 are, the design is complete. We're just waiting on some right-of-way issues, and we will soon have those on the street and being built. Convention Center site acquisition is near completion, very near completion on that. Preliminary design is complete. If you remember last month, we had that preliminary report, and final design is underway on that. Still working on punch list items at the Expo building at the fairgrounds, but from all reports I hear, it's working very well, and everybody is really pleased with the way that project turned out. And then we talked about the park today. Streetcar is going gangbusters right now. We have the track. They're still welding some of that track together, but you'll see if you go on Joe Carter, just east of the ballpark, you'll see that there's track in the ground, concrete poured. We're making headway on that, and they're working, it seems like, everywhere around town to relocate utilities for that. And if you go by the maintenance facility, you'll see that the roof decking is on the storage bays and on the main offices, so they're making great progress on that. So we have a lot going on.
Question for David about any of the projects?
I'm convinced that you began all the streetcar construction around my building because you knew I wouldn't complain. But no, I get to see the progress every day, twice, 2 to 4 times a day. But they are moving actually pretty quickly, so it's pretty neat to see.
That's great. Anything else? All right, that brings us then to item 13, comments by board and staff. Any comments?
I have one comment.
Michael?
I saw in the paper the other day that Leadership Oklahoma is honoring some longtime community luminaries, included Tom McDaniel, receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award, I think, at their banquet this month.
Thank you.
So I want to recognize Tom and tell him how much we appreciate all his hard work he's done at this committee and in other duties in the past. So.
Well, thank you, Michael. It scared my wife and sons. They thought it was a posthumous award. So I'm glad to say it isn't, as far as I know. Well, I have one comment I wanted to make as well. I'm reminded today by staff that as we now approach 7 years, beginning in 2010, this volunteer board has been together for a long time. And we have never had a single meeting when we didn't have a quorum. And I just want to express my appreciation to all of you. It's very interesting to have a volunteer board that can function for a multi-year period of this long, with all that goes on in life and all the other work and opportunities that other people have. To think that that kind of dedication has been devoted to this effort, I think should be something that gives some amount of confidence to the citizens of this city and to the city council to know of your dedication, and I want to thank you for that today. Any other comments from the board? Staff, any staff? Are we okay, Amanda, on rules? All right, good. And if there are citizens here that would like to make a comment, this is the opportunity. Seeing none, Cecilia has moved we adjourn, and it's been seconded by Bob. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.